Hello everyone, we are Group 11. My name is Rianne and I'm joined by my fellow group members Aya, Evian and Frank. We will begin by each of us reading our individual vignettes based on the theme of precarious work. After sharing our vignettes regarding this theme, Rianne, Evian and Frank will discuss the overview of each theory related to our experiences. Then, Rianne, Evian and Aya will be going through a collaborative orthothenographic analysis on the topic of precarious work, analyzing the similarities and differences between our experiences. Then I will conclude our presentation.
I started my day off like any other ordinary workday, confidently and enthusiastically as I utterly enjoy my workplace setting spread with upbeat and thrilling vibes. I swiftly clutched my backpack while stepping out of my house with my second pair of shoes in my hand. I was told today was an important day, something about having planned a food health and safety visit, where a higher positioned executive visits the store to assure obligations are done accurately. Therefore, I did not want to show up late. As I walked into my workplace, I noticed my colleagues and managers' nervous and incensed emotions. I entered the fitting room to place my belongings on the rack before heading to the front of the store, where I met Rebecca, my manager's sibling, who had just begun her employment. At the start of the shift, she appeared to be a respectful and kind-hearted individual. However, as the day went on, she started to take on the role of a higher-positioned employee. As I was serving a customer, I unintentionally dropped his soda on the ground. After apologizing and handing him another drink, he was very understanding. Can you do your job properly, as this shows that we are unprofessional, especially in front of the Food Health and Safety Department executive, Rebecca aggressively yells. I apologize for what I have done. However, this happens a lot. It is a common occurrence, I responded. Turning her back towards me, she says, well, let's try and prevent this from happening. She left me completely startled and speechless with the harsh words and the tone of her voice. I decided to let that incident slide and go on with my day. However, I noticed that she would comment on all the little things that would occur, and not only to me but also to my colleagues. I then decided to tell my manager, as I felt like she would be understanding and find a solution. Hey Emily, I just wanted to let you know that Mark's sister is acting inappropriate, pretending she is in a more powerful position than myself and others, which is making us feel awkward and frustrated. Looking shocked, Emily responds, I am sorry that this is happening. I do not agree with what she is doing and this should definitely be dealt with. However, Mark is the only manager who can do something about it because his position consists of dealing with these matters. Hey Mark, I thought I would address my concerns with you. He closed me off aggressively, replying, I know what is going on. Emily came to me concerned. He pauses, frustrated, and continued yelling. I think that you are overthinking this. My sister is only trying to help and express her views. Please let it go. There are more important things happening today than what you consider an issue. As I exited the office feeling resentful and aggravated with what had just happened, I heard Mike muttering under his breath, saying this is why female managers don't have the authority to take on such a role of dealing with issues in a workplace. They always make employees overthink a situation. Towards the end of my shift, I was stopped by Emily, who mentioned how furious she had also felt with the way Mark handled the situation. We spoke for a while and then parted ways, leaving work dissatisfied and unsettled.
I'm so stressed. I've been rostered 4 shifts this week and I have 2 assignments due by Thursday midnight, which I haven't started. I have the last sip of my extra hot cappuccino and anxiously walk into the office on Friday morning before my shift starts to let my manager know that I won't be able to work the following week from Monday to Thursday. I've never taken a day off and I don't know the process that goes with it. He greets me in a vibrant voice. Morning, Rianne, how have you been? After we greet each other, I apologize for the inconvenience I've caused and inform him that I misread my assessment due dates and I won't be able to work for the next 3 days. I know 2 of my friends will be desperate for some extra shifts, so they'll be able to cover my spot. I advised him of this and let him know that I could also make up for my days by working Friday, Saturday and Sunday. His mood immediately changed, from looking bubbly and happy to looking furious and annoyed. His blue mask covered his facial expressions, but all I could see was his eyebrows getting closer together. Aggressively he says, You need to give us at least 1 week's notice. We're extremely busy this week. You can't just decide a day before that you won't be coming. I go silent for a solid minute as I'm speechless. I'm in shock and become even more stressed as he begins to raise his voice. His voice begins to echo in my head. He continues, "It's too late to cancel or give away your shifts this week, so don't bother trying." I tried to explain myself. However, he didn't let me get a word in. I feel shaky and helpless in this moment. He then goes on to say, "I didn't expect this of you, Rianne. Women are usually far more organised." I'm beyond baffled. He expects me to be organised based on my gender. I begin to see blurry as tears fill up in my eyes, and my throat feels like it has a lump in it. I was trying to hold back my tears as I apologised once again and hesitantly made my way out. As I walked out to sit outside and process what just happened, one of my co-workers saw how distressed I looked and followed me out. She puts her hand on my shoulder and looks into my teary eyes and says, "Are you okay? What happened?" I explained to her what happened and she says, "Don't worry, he talks to everyone like that. When he doesn't like what he hears, he lets his anger out on the person. Don't take it personally." Hearing this made me even more concerned, as other people at my workplace have experienced this brutal conduct, and it seems to have become a normality. She then adds, "He's in charge and the highest manager, so he can make up his own rules." I'm confused, as I'm sure he doesn't need a week's notice if I want to give my shifts away to my friends, so he won't be understaffed if I'm replaced. Am I going to lose my job if I can't come to work?
I'm incredibly exhausted. I've been assigned 5 days of work this week with barely any information about my rights. Starting the day off, I immediately grasped into my uniform precisely without creasing the high quality cotton materials and corrected my tie's position through the front door's entrance. I estimate that if I leave now, I should arrive 10 minutes early to the firm to account for the morning delays. I arrived as predicted and walked with a calm stride into the office, acknowledging my coworkers as I walked past. I walked straight to my manager, Erica, to catch her up on my attendance. I slowly opened the door in order not to disturb Erica, who greets me in a soft and undemanding tone. "Good morning, Frank. I see you're early today." I keep the conversation short, so we can both get back to work. About an hour goes by before a member of the labor department team asks me to get a package from downstairs and bring it to Erica's office by 12. Looking at the clock, I realize I have 5 minutes and go as quickly as possible as I can. Stumbling into her office, I realized that I was too slow and apologized for any inconvenience this might have caused her. Erica swiftly snatched the package from me, giving me a grim facial expression, feeling annoyed for delaying the package. From gentle looking, smiling every time looking at me, now lifting her eyebrow will give me a disgusted look. I turned to walk out, but hear Erica yell with a demanding and abusive tone. "I gave you this position because I thought you were very tall with solid build and was a hard-working person. Why couldn't you do this faster? Can't you see?" I didn't take another step. I was frozen, speechless, shocked. That was the main reason for my position within the firm. I began questioning myself and my ability. Could I be this bad? Am I not suitable for this role? Sitting quietly on my 2 feet, cemented onto the ground beneath me, she continues to stare at me, looking at me as if I'm not worthy. I collected myself, apologized again, and walked back to my desk. I'm extremely blown away. She recognized me to be an organized person based on my characteristic as a male. I sat and began reflecting on my actions and the situation at hand. Sitting on my seat, a colleague pointed his finger to me to come to the office. I stand from my seat and walked into the office, closing the door behind me. He asked me what just happened because I looked frustrated compared to the version of myself I presented this morning. He told me to sit down and gave me a cup of water, looking into my eyes, saying, "What happened? You don't look like the same person that entered these doors in the morning." I slowly explained the situation that occurred, and he replied, "Everyone's first day is exactly like yours. Either you make it or not." Listening to his response made it difficult to regain my confidence, knowing that I could potentially be removed from my position. Hesitantly, I pushed myself out of the seat, regaining my balance and finally walking out, knowing that Erica may not welcome me within this firm.
I get prepared for a busy day at work by pinning my hair back and spraying the last bit of my favourite perfume before walking out the door. Today was Black Friday, so most of the stock had been marked 50% off. All staff were expected to work as it was expected to be one of the busiest days of the year. I arrive at work early and get briefed by my manager. As soon as he's done speaking to me, he disappears onto the floor. I could tell he was very flustered and on edge, and the day had just begun. I go into the fitting room when I hear my manager yell behind me, "Evian, move, get out of the way," as he makes his way past me into one of the fitting rooms, where the clothing that was left from customers needed to be put back. After him yelling at me, I felt quite on edge and nervous to work next to him, as I thought he may snap at me again. Some time had passed and I was on my lunch break with one of my co-workers. I expressed to her what happened to me in the fitting room and she responds with, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it, he talks like that to everyone." Hearing this from my co-worker didn't make me feel any better. I couldn't forget the ill feeling I felt inside when he spoke to me in that tone. Lucky the day proceeds on quickly and I go for my second break. One of the new girls that had just started full-time comes up to me and expresses that the manager had been speaking to her very aggressively towards her multiple times today after seeing him also do it to other people. "I want to discuss this with HR," the full-time worker expresses to me as I can see her tearing up in front of me. I give her advice to talk to HR if she feels like it would help her, as she also was feeling stressed and anxious coming to work. 1 week later, Imogen, the full-time worker, calls me to say that they let her go after she spoke to HR about our manager's behaviour. She explained to me that HR twisted the story back onto her. The manager expressed to the HR manager that you always turn up late to work and take your time doing your makeup in the back room. "We expected a lot more from you, especially as a full-time worker," the HR manager concludes. I felt so saddened by this news that I had become really close with Imogen the past couple of months and formed a real bond with her. Before Imogen spoke to HR, I knew the manager was friends with the HR manager, but never did I think it would cause her to lose her job.
The theories that we have applied in relation to precarious work is patriarchy, systemic violence, and microaggression. The patriarchal theory regulates and advises actions, practice, and regulations in society based on masculine and feminine character stereotypes. Patriarchal expectations can be written and verbally conveyed through formal and informal systems and procedures. Patriarchal organizations and societies are man-made, meaning they value men and masculinity rather than women and femininity. A practice of patriarchy is hegemonic masculinity. This favors masculinity, which is transferred to the workplace, portraying men as the perfect manager.
Systematic violence refers to workplace practices or procedures that negatively impact individuals and groups in an organization. This can be mentally, psychologically, culturally, economically, spiritually, or physically. This type of violence is embedded in the organization. Systematic violence is seen as supported by the organization as it is seen normal. The violence can be rationalized in saying it is normal part of the industry in the way the business runs. When outside parties are seen reporting this violence, it can be brushed off by employers, or in some other cases, managers may retaliate against the person making the complaint and push the blame onto them. The victim can feel invalidated from this, and the organization gives you the choice to put up with it or you can leave the organization.
Microaggression is an aggressive behavior conducted by an individual which can be verbal, behavioral, or environmentally humiliating. which is usually intentional or unintentional, communicating negative or racial insults. There are currently two types of microaggression. One, inventory of hostility and suspicious thinking, which is being worried, talked by others, and suspicious thinking. Where two is overt or covert aggression inventory, where physically hurting others through punching, kicking, pushing, or making threats.
The ways in which systemic violence has been normalized within the workplace are effectively portrayed through the similarities within Vignettes 1, 2, and 4, where systemic violence was encountered. In Vignette 1, systemic violence was evident through Rebecca's tone and confrontation when I caused an incident in the workplace, as she aggressively yelled at me, saying, "Can you do your job properly, as this shows that we are unprofessional, especially in front of the Food, Health and Safety Department executive." Similarly, Rianne mentioned that her manager became violent in how he spoke when she told him that she would have to take 3 days off the following week. In comparison to this, Evian's experience of systemic violence was also evidently depicted when she mentioned that she entered the fitting room and heard her manager yelling from behind, "Evian, get out of my way, move." Through the confrontations endured within each encounter, the same emotions and feelings were characterized by our expressions and actions after the occurrences. The similarity within each encounter demonstrates the systemic violence beliefs by interpreting the involvement of harm to an individual's self-esteem, integrity, and representation. The similarities between each vignette have reflected a normalized workplace culture where violence becomes supported by social organization compositions, and the responsibility for the abuse is placed on the victim, thus becoming a crucial and unavoidable fragment of organizational life.
Patriarchal expectations of gender and gender roles in society outline that masculinity is characterized by aggressiveness and dominance. Aya, Frank, and I all experience the patriarchal expectations of gender in the workplace. In my vignette, patriarchal expectations of gender shape my co-worker's beliefs, as he states that he is in charge and the highest manager, so he can make up his own rules. This comment clearly portrays that patriarchal ideology defines men to be more favoured and in control, as she claims he can make up his own rules. Similarly, Frank's manager tells him, "I gave you this position because I thought you were very tall, with a solid build, and was a hard-working person," thus reiterating the patriarchal ideology describing men to be strong and in charge. Whereas women are devalued and not depicted to be the ideal manager, this is seen in Aya's vignette, when the manager says, "This is why female managers don't have the authority to take on such a role." Aya and I's manager reacted in an aggressive manner as a result of hegemonic masculinity in the workplace, which has been institutionalized and become a regular norm. Both our managers reacted in an aggressive manner and became frustrated when they did not like what they were hearing.
Microaggression is treating someone differently because they are part of a different group. In vignettes 3 and 4, microaggression has been seen in the workplace. Frank and Evian's vignette shows similarities in the way they both experienced microaggression firsthand in the workplace. In Vignette 3, Frank experiences microaggression as an employee from his manager, as he is treated and seen differently because of being a male. With Frank being a male, his manager already had a preconceived idea of him. She states, "I gave you this position because I thought you were very tall, with a solid build, and had a hard-working personality." Not only did Erica place Frank in the group of being a male, she also judged him on his body type being tall and having a solid build. Meaning to her, he will be strong and be able to do things and get things done fast. When the incident occurred of Frank not getting her parcel to her in time, she raised her voice in an insulting microaggression way. In Vignette 4, Evian's manager and the HR manager had been with the company for 10 years, whereas Imogen had just started. In this case, they thought it was best to get rid of her as they had the authority over her to do so. The manager sees himself as part of a different group from his employees. Being in a managerial position, he considers it acceptable to speak to his staff the way he does. Microaggression in this scenario was seen as both the HR manager and the store manager were seen treating Imogen differently because of their role and the authority over her. To these managers, you are not seen as equal and you are part of another group.
Through thoroughly analyzing our vignettes, discrepancy between our confrontation has become apparent. The theories relating to vignette 1 and 2 are different from 3 and 4. For example, 1 and 2 do not depict or encounter microaggression in their experience. However, Evan and I have illustrated why we believe microaggression was obvious. Several key differences presented included our individual and sociological perspective, adjusting ourselves to adapt to the particular scenarios presented by society's ideas. The different industry sectors have reflected on the responses such as Aya and Ryan's portraying similar aspects in their roles in the hospitality sector, experiencing systematic violence. However, even being in the retail department and me being in the business field has caused a differentiation in our reaction towards the encounters. Even and I experience related to the microaggression theory, whereby Aya and Ryan did not, as they related the experience to the patriarchy and the systematic violence theory.
In conclusion, it is clear that auto-ethnographic analysis of our own experiences has enabled us to differentiate and draw judgments concerning our common theories, which are microaggression, patriarchy, and systemic violence. Through all our vignettes, we were able to see how precarious work has become normalized in the workplace. Although we experience different issues and work in different industries, we were able to find common similarities among all our vignettes. Overall, autoethnographic analysis is a binding instrument within strategic human resource management, as it empowers us to develop penetrations into one another and our encounters. That concludes our presentation. Thank you all for listening.